Okay, we're back. This is the last problem we ended with on the part one of the part two of the two-part series there. So we're now going to start part two here. I'm going to try and let you work out these. This one says solve by factoring, which is a little bit different. So let me get you started here, and then you can work these ones out on your own and check my answers to make sure they match up with your solutions. So solve by factoring just means that you have to get the equation to say equals 0, and right now it equals -3. So let's add 3 to both sides, and we're going to get 2x squared plus 7x plus 3 is equal to 0. And so from here, it's just which two numbers multiply to get 2 times 3, which is 6. Which two numbers multiply to get 6 and add up to get +7. And then you go ahead and work it out like we were doing the first few examples there. Pause the video, work it out, and then play the video and check to make sure your answer matches mine. This one is real easy because it's 6 and 1. They multiply to get 7. We know 2 and 3 multiplies to get 5. 6 and 1 are the ones we want. So we have 2x squared plus 6x plus 1x. I'm not putting the 1 there. And then we bring down plus 3. It's equal to 0. So we have 2x squared and 6x. The greatest common factor between 2x squared and +6x is going to be, looks like 2. So 2x squared is 2 times x, and 6x is going to be 2 times 3 times x. Let's look at what they have in common. I see an x and a 2 in both of them. So since I see an x and a 2 in both of them, we pull that 2x out front. X goes inside, and looks like we have a +3 inside. And here on the right, x plus 3. If you notice, this one already says x plus 3 in the parentheses, and the factors of x plus 3 is just x and 3. There's nothing that we can really factor out of x and +3. So what we have to do is you have to recognize that this needs to go in parentheses because that one's in parentheses. But remember, like I said in the previous video, there has to be an operation there. It's not multiplication. And that operation is a plus. And so now if you're looking, let's figure out what goes into the parentheses. X plus 3 goes into one of them. And 2x, and what is this number right here? It's +1. The invisible 1 is in there. And that's what we have here. And so from here, you work it out and you solve it. You set each parentheses equal to 0. And on the left side, you subtract 3 from both sides. X is equal to -3. And on the right side, you subtract 1. And you're left with 2x is equal to -1. And then you divide by 2. So x is equal to -1/2. You have your two solutions, or your x-intercepts, or roots, and that's what you have. X is equal to negative 3, x equals negative 1/2. Okay, let's go ahead and move right along. Trying to get it, we're solving by factoring. So we're trying to get it to set equal to 0. So we have 3x squared minus 17x minus 56 is equal to 0. 3 times 56. 3 times 56 is going to be, and that's a negative 56. Don't forget the negative 56. So it's going to be negative 168. And it has to add up to get negative 17. Well, since they both have to multiply to get a negative, you know one of the numbers has to be negative. And since they have to add up to get a negative 17, you know that the larger number is the number that's going to be negative. And what do I mean by that? Let's say we have 1 and 168. The larger number is 168, so then it gets the negative sign, because the answer then is negative 167. If we had negative 1 and positive 168, this answer, when you add those two numbers, you get a positive answer. And you don't want a positive answer because we're trying to get negative 17. All right, I know that's nowhere close. 1 and negative 168 is nowhere close. So I want to try different numbers. I know 4, it looks like 4 is going to go into it. So we say 168 divided by 4 into your calculator, and you should be able to, you might be able to do this one in your head. But it's 4 and 42, and remember the larger number has to be negative, so we get a negative 38 here. Okay, that one's not going to work. What about 8? Let's try 8. And you type 168 divided by 8, or you might know that it's 8 and 21. 21 is a larger number, so it has to be negative. So 8 plus negative 21 is going to give you negative 13. All right, well, negative 13 is closer than negative 17, but we seem to have passed it. I mean, we went from negative 38 to negative 13. It looks like negative 17 is going to be somewhere in between there. So therefore, we should try and pick some numbers that are in between 4 and 8. Let's go with 6. Let's see what 6 will do for us. Let's see if 6 goes into 168. And it does. 28 times. And we know the larger number 28 has to be negative. So that is going to be negative 22. And from negative 13, we went up to negative 22. And we know negative 17 must be between negative 13 and negative 22. So therefore, let's try the number that is between these. And what's the number between 8 and 6? 7. So 168 divided by 7 should give you 24 and the negative. 7 plus negative 24, negative 17. And there's our winner. That's the one we want to use. That one was a little challenging. Sometimes they are, and sometimes you just find it without even a lot of struggle. But let's go ahead and write this down. So we have 3x squared, and negative 17x is going to change into a positive 7x minus 24x, and then minus 56 equal to 0. So let's look here. 3x squared plus 7x, you can factor out nx. There's no number that goes into 3 and 7 other than the 1. 1's the only number that goes into 3 and 7. So if we pull out the x, we're left with 3x inside, and we're left with 7 inside. Well, On the right there, we have negative 24x and negative 56. That's where it helps to know your multiplication tables, because I know negative 8 goes into it, both of them, and negative 8 goes into negative 24x. Think about it like this. The negatives become positives, and 24 divided by 8 is 3, and then you're left with the x. And then negative 8 goes into negative 56 how many times? The negatives become positive, and you get a 7, which is a positive 7. So you put positive 7. Set it all equal to 0. And make your two parentheses. 3x plus 7 and x minus 8. That's not a very nice looking 8. Much better, much better. Okay, so this is where we're at. We have it factored. So now let's go ahead and find the solutions here. Set each one equal to 0. On the left, subtract 7. 3x equals negative 7. And on the, I have to finish this one. X equals negative 7 thirds. On the right side, add 8 to both sides. X should equal 8. So there's your two solutions. X equals negative 7 thirds and x equals 8. Okay, move along. Here's another one. Now this one just says factor. This one just says factor. So we're not finding the roots or the solutions or the x-intercepts. What we're going to do is we're just going to break it down into two parentheses. It's going to say x. This one's going to say x minus something and x plus something. You have to figure out what those are. And I think probably should be a number in front of x in these ones. So you go ahead and work that out. You still work it out the same. Two numbers that multiply to get negative 24, and they add up to get negative 5. Use your number sense skills here to know that if it has to multiply to get negative 24, it has to add up to get negative 5. The larger number of the two must be the negative. Numbers that multiply to get negative 24, we're looking at 6 and 4. The largest one has to be negative, so this is a negative 2. Let's try 8 and 3. Largest one has to be negative, so negative 5. And that's the one we want. There we go. So we say y is equal to 4x squared minus 8x plus 3x minus 6. And these ones are right there. And let's go ahead and factor out what we can on the left side. What goes into 4x squared and negative 8x? The largest number is 4, and there's only one x that we can pull out of both of them. And what's left over? Well, 4x squared divided by 4x only leaves an x, because if you notice, 4x times x is 4x squared. And what can we pull out of negative 8x? Well, you know a negative divided by a positive is a negative, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. X divided by x, they cancel each other out. And let's look at 4x times 2, or 4x times negative 2 gives us negative 8x, and that's what we're looking for. Just a quick side note here. Quick side note. You could have pulled a 2 out. You could have pulled like 2x, and you would have been left with 2x minus 4. Okay? Just remember you're supposed to pull all the factors out because you know that another 2 goes into those two that I've put arrows towards. And I'm going to leave that there because I want to show you this one here on the right side now. What goes into 3x, that also goes into negative 6. I believe that would be a positive 3. And if we pull a positive 3 out of 3x, we're left with x. If you pull a positive 3 out of negative 6, so negative 6 divided by positive 3 gives you a negative 2. And if we had used this one here and gotten this one here for the second one, you notice that those two parentheses are not the same, so therefore you should be looking at these and see if you can factor anything else out. This one here on the right is already factored out. You can't go lower than 1x. But here on the left, you know that there's a 2 that can be pulled out of both of those. So you should go ahead and pull that 2 out, and then when you do that, you just multiply it there to get your 4x. And you pull the 2 out of 2x and negative 4. And you notice that's what we have now, and the parentheses are the same. So you're trying to get those parentheses the same, and sometimes you don't always factor using the greatest common factor, which causes this situation that I am erasing. So we say y is equal to all that. Those get their own parentheses, and this goes into another set of parentheses. It says factor, so we don't have to go any further than here. We have the two factors. If you multiply these two factors together, you will get what we started with. This one here also says factor. So you go ahead and try and work this one out. I'll work this one out, and you can check your solution. They're supposed to multiply to get negative 15, add up to get positive 14. Two numbers that multiply to get negative 15 that add up to get positive 14. Well, I know that they have to multiply to get a negative, so one of these numbers, one of those numbers has to be negative, and since it's a positive, that means the larger number has to be the positive, so the smaller number will be the negative. On the top, negative 1 plus 15 is a positive 14, and negative 3 plus 5 on the bottom is a 2. And so therefore, this is what we're looking for. Let's go ahead and factor. Y is equal to 3x squared. Now let's change positive 14x to become negative 1x and positive 15x right here. Negative 1x and positive 15x. Drop down your negative 5. What can you factor out of here? Well, we have 3 times x, and then minus x. I see an x. So that means that we pull the x out. You're left with 3x. Now, there's a number over here, so you cannot forget to write it there. In this case, the number is negative 1. Sometimes you might have a positive 1 there, but in this case, it's a negative 1. Do not forget to write that number there. And you should always be thinking, what is x times 3x? 3x squared. What is x times negative 1? Negative x. So that's what you have. And on the right side, what can you pull out of 15x and negative 5? Well, 15 is 3 times 5, and then your x. And then you have negative 5. So what can you pull out? I see a 5. So that leaves us with positive 5 coming out, and on the inside, 3x, and on the right of that, you have a negative 1. So y is equal to, those are the same, so they get their own parentheses. If they weren't the same, you would have not factored out everything possible. And x plus 5. It's only asking you to factor, so you leave it like this. Y is equal to 3x minus 1 in one parentheses, and in the other, x plus 5. You can double check your work by multiplying those two together, and you should get 3x squared plus 14x minus 5. And one last one here. One last one. Why don't you pay attention to this one here? I will give you a quick hint on making this problem a little bit easier. A little bit easier. This one does say solve, so we know we have to set it equal to 0. So in order to set it equal to 0, we have to add 46x, add 46x. 12x squared and 46x are not like terms. They do have the same variable, but they do not have those variables do not have the same exponents. So this is what we are working with. And typically you're used to saying two numbers that multiply to get whatever that is and add up to get positive 46. But those numbers can be made smaller. What number goes into 2 that also goes into 46 that also goes into 36? And I said what number goes into 2? I meant what number goes into 12? 46 and negative 36. And I think I kind of gave you the answer when I said 2 earlier. 2 does. So let's pull a 2 outside. And what we're doing is we're putting all of this inside the parentheses, but we're factoring 2 out of all those numbers. So what is 12 divided by 2? 6. So we're going to say 6x squared. What is 46 divided by 2? 23. So that's a positive 23x. And what is 36 divided by 2? That would be 18. And pay attention to your sign, negative 18. So we have changed 12x squared plus 46x minus 36 to be what we have down below. It's the very bottom line. And now we're trying to solve for x, so let's get rid of this 2 out front, divide the left side by 2, divide the right side by 2, because if I do something on the left side, I also have to do it on the right side. Those 2's cancel, and we're left with 6x squared plus 23x minus 18 is equal to, and now what do we have here? What is 0 divided by 2? 0. So now we have smaller numbers to work with. All right, let me move this to another page. That way I have more room to work. And from here, I think you can go ahead and factor it out. You go ahead and factor it out, find out what the factors are, and then find out what the solutions are. I'm going to work it out on the next page here, and you can check your solutions in one moment. All right, we have to find two numbers that multiply to get, what is 6 times negative 18? 6 times negative 18, 6 times 8 is 48. 6 times 1 is 6, plus the 4, 108. And it's 6 times negative 18, so it's going to be negative 108. and they have to add up to get a positive 23. Well, I'm thinking about they have to multiply to get a negative to become a positive, so the larger number should be the positive. And 2 times 54 is going to be 52. Not real close. So I'm going to try 4. So 4 goes into 108 27 times. And since it's got to be a positive, the 4 must be the negative. So negative 4 plus 27 is a positive 23. And we have it. So those are the numbers we will be using. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have 6x squared minus 4x plus 27x minus 18 equal to 0. What are your factors that go into 6x squared and negative 4x? 2x. And so that should leave you with 3x and negative 2. Don't forget to pay attention to your signs. And what are the factors that go into 27 and negative 18? It looks like probably a 9. So that's a positive 9. Don't forget to put your plus sign there. And that leaves us with 3x inside and negative 2. Parentheses match up. We're good to go. So 3x plus 2 will get its own parentheses. And 2x plus 9 will get its own parentheses. And now we work these out. Trying to solve, so 3x plus 2 and 2x plus 9, set each one equal to 0, and figure out what the answers are. We'll minus 2 from both sides, so 3x is equal to negative 2, and divide by 3. X is equal to negative 2/3. On the right, subtract 9 from both sides. 2x is equal to negative 9, and divide by 2. X is equal to negative 9 halves. So there's your two solutions. You can plug those back into the original equation that we started with on the previous slide and verify that those are correct. So this is how you factor. The last two videos, those two parts were on factoring. This is factoring by grouping. There's another way to factor, which is basically the same way here, except it takes a different thought process, and it takes you to do more calculations inside your head. And I feel like this is you're capable, everybody's capable of doing this as long as you follow the process and follow the steps. You're more likely to get these right and struggle less than if you were trying to think about it all in your head. In class, I will give you explanations on how to factor in your head, and sometimes it makes it a little bit easier, sometimes it makes it not. It just depends on you. So we're going to end the video here. We're going to see you next time, and hopefully answer any questions you might have and get you cleared up over this. I will see you guys the next time. Thank you very much.